So, good morning, good day, everyone. I was appreciating so much the chats that I was almost forgetting to start speaking. So thank you all for being here, and I appreciate very much that we have this wide international community that comes together to practice, to meditate, to engage in these teachings, and I feel very fortunate to be able to offer these teachings to such a receptive audience. So thank you. So there is a kind of current of teaching in Buddhism that one of the meanings of karma, when we do something that has karmic consequences, is that it leaves traces. And that when we are doing something without any karmic residue, there's no traces. That it's possible to do things that somehow leave no traces, leave no residue, therefore leaving us fresh, leaving us kind of new or able to meet the next moment without bringing with us the baggage and the influence of the past. So when we sit to meditate, we can start recognizing that there are traces left. So for example, if the mind wanders off in thought, and then you bring your mind back, but you're not really successfully able to do that, the pull of the thinking is strong. That pull is the traces of momentum that was set in place, that somehow there was a force operating in the way we're thinking, the way we're maybe attached, that remains even once we've kind of let go of the thoughts. Or we let go of them for a moment, but very quickly we're pulled back into that world. And that the force that keeps pulling us into our preoccupations, our thoughts, the past, the future, our fantasies, the force of that is part of this residue that's left over from a momentum that's set in place of what we've been doing in the past and what we've been thinking in the past and what we've been feeding. So if we're feeding in the past, just living our daily life, we're unrestrained in our preoccupations, only thinking about what we want or only thinking about how we've been wronged. Then there's sometimes, because of the involvement, the identification, the attachment, the resistance, the strength of that involvement with that preoccupation, it leaves a residue. And that residue has a function of like ready to reappear in some way or other. Becomes a habit almost. So one of the functions of meditation is to try to be in the present moment the best we can, be with the breath, is to notice how much residue there is, the traces that are left over, where we're automatically pulled away or preoccupied and caught in things. Some of that residue we feel in the tension in our body. All tension is a residue of some way in which we've been preoccupied. And it's a marvelous thing to have the body relax enough that the residue, at least the surface residue, begins to dissipate. Certain emotions are left over. They're not just fresh and new, but there's residue that sometimes reappears, sometimes years later. The residue, the traces, has been left behind, unresolved, and then there comes a residue. There's the traces again. There's no need to feel bad about it or feel bad about yourself that there are traces of karmic traces like this, but it is invaluable to see it, to know, oh, that's what's happening. And it can be a lot easier if we just see it that way. Oh, that's what's happening. These are traces. This is the residue. This is the residue still having momentum. Maybe it's a little easier to disidentify with it, not be so tricked by it, to think that it's so important to do. It might be easier just to recognize it in a simple way. Oh, residue, traces, and then begin again. And that clarity of residue traces might make it easier just then to come back into the present moment. So assuming a meditation posture, and I put a lot of value on the posture we assume in meditation, an intentional posture that establishes us here in a clear, definitive way, here in this place and this time. Partly because, on one hand, it's easier to then release the residue, and also because it's easier to see it. If we have a posture that's karmically neutral, where the habits of attitudes, dispositions don't dictate the posture we have. And so this, upright posture of the Buddha statue represents a posture free of karma, free of the momentum of the past, dispositions and attitudes. Taking a long, deep inhale, releasing a long exhale. Breathing in, breathing out. Letting the breathing return to normal. And the rhythm of breathing in and breathing out in the body, maybe it can be like waves washing up and down against the shore. If there's been a disturbance on the beach, the waves just come and they go and they smooth out the sand, bringing it back to the way it's been maybe for millennia. Flat. Or we have a coarse piece of wood, and we gently repeat over and over again the sanding of it back and forth. And slowly something gets smoother. So that gentle staying with the rhythm of breathing in and breathing out, we might feel the karmic traces in our body and mind. But staying with the rhythm, like a waves washing across everything. Slowly letting the karmic traces and tensions be smoothed out without being tricked into thinking, reacting to anything. Staying with the rhythm of breathing. Waves smoothing out the beach. what residue or traces are found in you now. And instead of being involved in them or thinking about them, let the breathing be the massage or the waves that softens the strength of the residue. And then coming to the end of this sitting, taking a few long, deep breaths. Relaxing as you exhale. Maybe relaxing some of the residue of tension, traces. And considering for a few moments how there can be love or care or kindness without any residue, without leaving any traces behind in our hearts or minds. Simple, straightforward, clean love. And to gaze upon the world with such a care, wishing well for everyone without any attachment, any fear, any hesitation. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. And may all beings everywhere be free. Thank you. So, continuing the topic of how mindfulness of the body can support us in challenges. The third exercise the Buddha gives in his famous teachings on mindfulness, third teachings about the body, is to be mindful, to be aware, to know the activities we're doing with the body as we're doing them. So as we're moving, certainly as we're walking, as we're talking, as we are putting on our clothes, as we're going to the bathroom, as we're showering or bathing, each of these everyday activities is a meditation center in itself, is a monastery in itself, is a sacred dimension, sacred place for practice of mindfulness. And to see it as a, as a meditation center, as a sacred location, is to put a lot of value on the presence, the attention, the care that we give in being with each everyday activity that we do. Eating, the Buddha mentions, drinking, stretching out your hand to grab something, to open a door, turn a doorknob, to close the door, to put on your shoes, to be cooking in the kitchen or cleaning. There's, innumerable ones of these everyday daily activities. And the third exercise in developing mindfulness is to bring mindfulness, attention, into these activities as we do them. And this has a lot of benefits in kind of the ordinary way of thinking about mindfulness. It's a way of being mindful in the present moment, and it's a way of building up the muscle of mindfulness, muscle of attention to the present, so that we can begin abiding, living in the present more and more, and thereby receiving the benefits from doing so. And but also, doing this reveals what's going on otherwise. That if we stop and pay attention, not stop, but if we do our activities while we're attending to them and really present for them, you might notice how the mind has other ideas. It's drifting off and thinking about tomorrow or yesterday or a fantasy of some kind. And the emotional lives can follow the thoughts, or the emotions can be very much about something that's not present here and now, and are being reinforced by the thoughts, the stories about this other time, other place. And so there are traces, this residue left over from other things, where there's preoccupation, concerns, attachments, resistances, fears that are operating, that have a kind of, sometimes a life of their own, a momentum of their own. And it isn't necessarily wrong to have that, but it's really helpful to see it. And when we're present for our daily activities, standing over the stove, stirring a pot of soup, to really be there for that stirring, we notice, well, I'm not really there. I'm still thinking about the traffic ticket I got and how it's unfair and this and that. And so there's something happened to us early in the day that's sticky, and we're kind of stuck with it or glued to it or preoccupied with it. And so seeing that as we are stirring the soup, we say, oh, look at that. Now I can see the power this has over me. If we just go about our life and just unconsciously let the mind think about its preoccupations and thoughts, it might seem like business as usual, and we might not even notice that it's how much the mind is caught, how much the mind is preoccupied, and the influence that preoccupation has on our body, our emotions, our hearts. But if you're stirring the soup and you see that you're thinking about the traffic ticket, then, wow, that's really strong. Oh, is this really the right thing to be thinking about? Or do I need to attend to this in some way? Do I need to settle something deeper? Maybe I should turn the stove off and go sit down for 5 minutes and just really let the leftover agitation of the traffic ticket to wash through me and kind of drain out by just sitting, breathing with it. That's what's needed. Otherwise, the residue of that tension, agitation, is going to be driving my thoughts. So the simple way of maybe saying this is that as we bring our attention to the present moment and try to be with what's happening as we're doing it, we start noticing how much we're not there. And that reveals something really important about ourselves, important information. And then what you do next is up to you, but at least you know something that you didn't know before. In terms of some of the challenges we have in our life, some challenges we get stuck in. The stronger the challenge, sometimes there's a stuckness, and some people freeze, go numb. Some people hunker down, and some people collapse. And some people do the opposite and get agitated and are really spinning out. To go about our daily activities, the simple brushing our teeth, washing our face, to really be there in a simple, relaxed way, is the middle way between collapsing or being numb or frozen or being agitated. It's using the movements, the activities of the body to channel the energy, to give space for the energy, to get movement, to get fluidity, to lubricate our system without it being too much or too little. Going about the daily activities as a way of loosening up, as a way of settling, as a way of grounding, as a way of not being glued to our challenges we have, our concerns for them, is very freeing, very helpful. It lubricates, it massages, it kind of can be grounding so that we can be more wise about how we consider our challenges, how we address them. But so the more engaged we are with more caught up we are in the challenges, the more it really has grabbed us. Sometimes the more useful it is to do something, some activity that kind of frees us a little bit, loosens up us a little bit, or settles us a little bit. Sometimes, like it could be going for a walk, and the walk is what allows the energy of the emotional energy of the challenge to start becoming a little more fluid and not so stuck. Or if we're collapsing into it or going numb, it can kind of wake us up a little bit. If we go the opposite direction and get too agitated, the walk can actually be settling. The walking around, these daily activities, I like to think of them as the middle way that brings things into balance. So you might try that next time you have some kind of real challenge that's hard for you to be with. Maybe not the most challenging, but something that, moderately challenging, that's difficult. Don't just sit and do nothing. Don't just fret. But don't go kind of numb and do things on automatic pilot. Enter into the activity of what you're doing in the moment with mindfulness and presence. Maybe even an embodied presence. So you're really there. Almost like imagine that you're a dancer or an actor who is embodying the part with the whole being, stirring the soup, brushing the teeth, and see if that creates a little bit more space and lubrication for the challenges we have, more balance. By the time we're finished that, maybe we're a little bit more centered, a little bit more able to think more clearly. It's not that easy that just brushing your teeth is all it's going to take, but we have lots of different everyday activities through daily life. And to be mindful, really mindful of them, we have lots of little opportunities to reset, to ground, and to discover what is really going on. What are the residue? What's left over? What's the strength of that residue? What's the strength of our kind of the way we're glued to the preoccupation, the challenge we have, and to not necessarily the challenge doesn't go away, but one of the things practice can do is it can maybe dissolve the glue that keeps us glued to it, or the stickiness that can be washed away, so that unstuck we can, address the challenge or be with it or figure out what's best to do. So we have many opportunities throughout the day, daily life practice, to be mindful of the activities of the daily life. And maybe it's useful to think of it as the ordinary, regular, repeated activities that you do as your meditation center, your monastery, your sacred grove, sacred spot. Not the place, but the activity is where it is so significant. And if you take, a dozen, 2 dozen of the regular activities you do through the day and really make it a place to lubricate, to massage, to ground, to be present, to discover more clearly how there's so much residue, so much ways in which they're spinning out. I think it could be invaluable for helping us work with a challenge we have in daily life. To not do that, for some of us, that might mean that we're actually feeding the preoccupation, feeding the caughtness, the emotional reactivity to the challenge. If we, that's so easy to give into it or live in that all the time. But to have some kind of way to cut through the reactivity, cut through the stuckness that we have around challenges is invaluable in our ability to address them more wisely. And if you have no challenges, then it's a delight to give ourselves over fully to the physical activity of these daily activities that we do, to really enter into it in an embodied, absorbed way. Just washing the dishes, just stirring the soup, just brushing the teeth. And maybe that just is a source of rejuvenation. May the activities of your daily life become a sacred dimension of your life. Thank you.